Shaka, tomorrow we are going to see Man City against Spurs. It's two teams who are smarting from derby defeats last time out. What are you expecting here? Because Spurs did well against City last season.
I'm expecting more of a response from City than any kind of any kind of response from Spurs, in all honesty. And as I mentioned before, I thought City played particularly well against Manchester United. But then that goal, as I mentioned, the Bruno Fernandes goal, and as much as you credit Manchester United for how they responded to that good fortune, because in my opinion, that goal shouldn't have stood. Manchester City did the exact opposite. They just their game just came apart, which was a little bit surprising. I'll be honest with you. So Manchester City will recognize that as much as you can point to VAR or the law or however it's written, they have themselves to blame for at least not taking a point. And I expect a response from them. For Spurs, sadly, it's been the same thing over and over for them. You know, it's, again, a derby defeat for them, but their performance left nothing to kind of have you clinging to. I mean, they were better in the second half. But we've said that about Spurs continually this season. Just seem to come out slowly, and only when the horse is bolted, they decide to try to play some football. And then continued kind of questions and comments from Antonio Conte. I don't think that's added to any kind of self-belief around Spurs. So sadly, I think it's just going to be another frustrating evening for Spurs fans.
How do you see it going, Rob? Do you think City will bite back, or will they struggle again?
Well, as you mentioned just earlier, that City don't tend to do that well against Spurs. Out of all the teams in the Premier League, they have struggled against Spurs sides in the past, whoever the manager is. I think obviously both teams will need a result, but City are absolutely desperate for a result, because obviously they lost to Brentford before the World Cup and it was put down to a blip. Then they drew with Everton after the World Cup and it was put down to Everton defending particularly well. They lost to Southampton in the Carabao Cup and it was put down to Pep Guardiola making a lot of changes. And then they've lost to Man United, albeit with a goal that probably shouldn't have stood, but the result still stands and they've lost. It's easy to make excuses for City because we know the quality that they've got and that they've got this tendency to go on these long winning runs of sort of 20, 25 games and win trophies. But the longer this little patch goes on, the less and less likely that will become. And teams like Arsenal and Man United will feel emboldened by them losing their form, to mount a real challenge for the Premier League title. So, if City do want to win the title this year, and obviously they do, they're going to need to start finding their form very quickly because, these games slip away very, very quickly at this stage of the season. And you can find yourself, behind the eight ball very, very fast. They are desperate for a result. Clearly Spurs are as well because they had a difficult result at the weekend. But in terms of City's title ambitions, they really, really need to win.
What does your instinct tell you, Rob, if I were to ask you for a prediction?
I think City will win. They've just got the players are too good to go through these runs of forms for any length of time. You've got a player like Haaland who has scored 27 goals in all competitions this season, 21 in the Premier League. It's very, very hard to keep him quiet for 2 games in a row. And as Shaka said, you can look at that City game against United and obviously they lost and Pep Guardiola will take that result on the chin. But for large portions of that game, they were the better team, particularly after half time. And bar a mad 4-minute spell where they conceded twice. Really after Jack Grealish's goal, they should have scored again, and we could have easily be sat here talking about a comfortable 2-0 win for City. I don't think there's a lot wrong with the way that City are playing, but it's just about getting results and getting over the line. I'm sure that Pep Guardiola is ramming that into his players ahead of the game, and it would be a big surprise if City don't win that game.
So, Shaka, you see City getting it done. What's your scoreline?
I'm going to go for 2-0 Manchester City, and Haaland getting one of those. And to that point, Rob said something there I thought sums City up so well, or certainly this form. It's easy to make excuses for City because we know exactly how good they are, and that's the absolute truth. My only complaint about City, especially with Haaland in the park, is at times City just have to get the ball forward. You have a player like Haaland who 1-on-1, you back him 90% of the time with defenders. And I'm struggling to think of a time in the Manchester United game where somebody at the back just drilled one forward to Haaland to go 1-on-1 with whichever centre back he was paired up against. A lot of their play is still methodical, still very, very slow. But that's you can take that approach when you don't have a player like Haaland on the pitch, as City had done for the last 2 seasons, and relied on the smaller, more intricate passing. But when you have somebody like Haaland, when you have that as an option, use it. It does 2 things. It gives the centre-backs a lot more to think about. It also stretches the pitch. And City are a whole lot better with those spaces. So I would like to see City use that as an option, at the very least, to change how games are played or how teams defend against them. They do that, it's always difficult to make an argument for anybody to beat City, even in this run that they're under. And as Rob said, it's very easy to make excuses for the poor results that they've been having. But we know how good City are at their very best. I just think that sometimes they need to go back to playing to their strengths.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.